At my wife's ultrasound appointment, the doctor's hands began to shake as he stared at the screen. His face went pale, and he pulled me into a private room, closing the door with a heavy click. He looked me dead in the eye and whispered that I needed to leave immediately and file for divorce. I thought he had lost his mind. I demanded to know why, but he insisted there was no time to explain, only that I was in immediate danger. When I finally saw what he had discovered, my entire world shattered. If you've ever put your heart in the hands of the wrong person, you know this pain. At 55, I had built a life most people only dream of. I held a real estate portfolio worth over $18 million and a reputation in Charleston that opened every door. But I would have traded every cent to have my first wife, Sarah, back. She passed away 6 years ago after a brutal battle with cancer. For 2 years, I was a ghost in my own home. Then I met Elena. He was 40 when we married, young enough to bring color back into my world, but old enough to respect my grief. She moved into the historic home Sarah and I had restored, and slowly the silence faded. Last winter, she told me she was pregnant. 7 months later, I sat at my dining table, watching my family. My daughter Maya, who is 32 and the living image of her mother, sat next to her husband Julian. Julian had been my right hand at the firm for 3 years. Ambitious, capable, the son I never had. Elena moved around the table with that radiant glow, her hand resting on her stomach. She refilled my wine before I could even ask. A sharp headache pulsed behind my eyes, a constant companion for weeks. My doctor called it stress, but Maya noticed my paleness. Elena quickly pulled a bottle from her pocket and handed me 2 capsules. She called them my vitamins and insisted I take them. They tasted bitter, but I swallowed them down. Elena mentioned the ultrasound for the following Tuesday. She wanted me there to find out the gender together. Julian smiled, calling it a big moment, and for the first time since Sarah died, I felt true gratitude. But then I noticed the small things. Julian's hand lingered on Elena's shoulder just a second too long. Elena's phone buzzed repeatedly, and she hid the screen every time. When I mentioned a mysterious $800 hotel charge on the company card, Julian froze before claiming it was a client dinner. I didn't remember the clients, but the headache was winning, and my family seemed happy. I didn't know I was swallowing poison with every sip of water. By the weekend, the pain was unbearable. My joints felt like lead, and nausea hit me in waves. Elena insisted I see our family physician, Dr. Miller. He had been my doctor for 15 years. He listened to my symptoms, the fatigue, the aches, the brain fog. He gave me the look doctors give workaholics and diagnosed me with classic stress. He suggested my body was telling me to slow down and wrote a script for anti-anxiety meds. Elena squeezed my hand, acting the part of the worried wife. That night, she brought me tea and another, vitamin. I took it, despite the lingering bitter taste. Later, Maya called to check in. She mentioned that the DNA kits she had ordered for her and Julian had arrived. Something cold settled in my chest. I watched Elena across the room, noting the way her hands trembled when she handled my pills. My gut, the same instinct that built a multi-million-dollar empire, was screaming that something was wrong. But the doctor said stress, and Elena said rest. So I kept taking the capsules. The day of the ultrasound arrived. Elena was talkative, dreaming of nursery colors and baby names. I drove us to the clinic, my head throbbing. In the dim room, the technician moved the wand over Elena's belly. We saw the flickering image, heard the heartbeat. 140 beats per minute. Everything looked perfect for 32 weeks. Elena smiled at me with tears in her eyes, and I tried to mirror her joy. Then the technician stopped. Her eyes moved to a second monitor, one displaying lab data rather than the ultrasound. Her face shifted. She stood up abruptly, claiming she needed to get the lead physician, Dr. Hayes, for a standard protocol. She vanished before we could ask a single question. 5 minutes later, Dr. Hayes entered. He was a seasoned professional who had seen it all. He looked at the ultrasound, then the lab results, then at me. He told Elena the baby was perfectly healthy. But then he turned to me with a gravity that made the room feel ice cold. He said he needed to speak with me privately regarding some administrative matters in the prenatal screening. Elena frowned, confused by the timing, but the doctor was absolute. I followed him into a small consultation room. The door shut. He told me that as part of their standard care, they run a comprehensive screening, including paternity confirmation, to ensure an accurate medical history for the child. He paused, his face grim, and told me that the results of that test changed everything. He turned his screen toward me, and I stared at the lab report. The words were bold, clinical, and devastating. Paternity screening results. Biological father identified, Julian Trevor M., 99.99% probability. The words blurred, then refocused, then blurred again. "That's my son-in-law," I whispered. Dr. Hayes' voice was steady, but his eyes burned with a controlled fury. He explained that Julian's DNA was already in their database from a company-wide wellness screening I had implemented at my firm months ago. The markers were a perfect match. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I asked if Elena knew he had told me. He said no, that the results were flagged for his eyes only, and he wanted to consult with me first. "Don't tell her," I said, my voice sharp and instinctive. "When we go back in there, you tell her the baby is healthy and everything is perfect. Nothing else." "Doctor," said Hayes, studied me for a long beat, asking if I was truly safe at home. I told him I was fine, even as my legs felt like water. I needed 1 minute. Then we would go back, and this conversation would officially never have happened. I stood alone in that room, staring at Julian's name on the screen. 30 years of building a legacy, a business, and a family collapsed into a single, undeniable truth. My wife was carrying my son-in-law's child, and the vitamins she had been feeding me for months, the ones that made me weaker every day, suddenly made perfect, terrifying sense. I walked back into the ultrasound room with a fake smile. I kissed Elena's forehead. When she asked if everything was okay, I told her it was perfect. "It's a boy," I said. She cried happy tears while the doctor finished the scan. I drove us home, admired paint swatches for the nursery, and as soon as she left for her yoga class, I called the only person I've trusted for 3 decades. "Robert," I said to my attorney, "I need the best private investigator in the city, and I need him today." 2 days later, I locked my home office. Elena was out, and every minute she was away now felt like a relief. I spread everything across my desk: bank statements, corporate credit logs, phone records, and key card access reports. I needed a timeline. If Julian was the father, I needed to know exactly when and where. I started with the pregnancy announcement. In mid-January, Elena told me she was 10 weeks along. That meant conception happened in early November. I pulled up my calendar, November 14th through the 16th. I was in Colombia for a real estate summit. I remembered that weekend because Maya had been in Atlanta visiting friends. Julian had been in Charleston alone. I opened the corporate American Express statement and scrolled to November 14th. A charge for the Grand Palmetto Hotel, $847. It was coded as client entertainment for a family from Atlanta we were supposed to be courting. Except we never landed them. We never even had a second meeting because the meeting never existed. I cross-referenced Julian's office keycard logs. On the 14th, he left at 3:45 p.m. On the 15th, he never entered the building. 2 full days unaccounted for at a luxury hotel while I was away, and his wife was out of town. I checked Elena's personal statements. No charges, no spa visits, no restaurants. She had told me she was having a girls' weekend with college friends, but there was no paper trail. She hadn't gone anywhere, except to that hotel. The pattern repeated in December, January, and February. Every time I traveled or Maya worked late, there was a hotel charge on the company card or a gap in their schedules. They had been careful, using business expenses as cover and creating alibis like book clubs and late nights at the office, but they weren't careful enough. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. This was a calculated year-long betrayal, timed precisely around my absence and my daughter's schedule. And the baby was the centerpiece of the plan. My phone buzzed. A text from Elena. Appointment done.
Heading home. Want Thai for dinner?
I stared at the cheerful emoji and typed back, "Sure, see you soon." Then I opened a new file and began cataloging every date, every charge, and every lie. I met Robert the next morning at a quiet cafe. I slid the DNA results across the table. Robert read them in silence, his lawyer's mask cracking to reveal pure rage. "Jesus, Lucas," he whispered. I showed him the timeline and the insurance policy I'd found. He gripped my shoulder and told me he knew a man, Hunter Blake, an ex-detective who handled the city's ugliest secrets with total discretion. Hunter's office was spare and professional. He was a man who didn't waste words. I walked him through the DNA, the affair, and the financial trail. He took notes in efficient shorthand, then paused to look at me. "How long have you been feeling sick?" he asked. The question caught me off guard. I told him 3 months, headaches, nausea, fatigue. Hunter didn't look surprised. He told me he was adding a medical investigation to the scope. He wanted a background check on Elena and a full forensic workup on Julian. "I don't believe in coincidences," he said. 3 days later, Hunter called. "You need to come to my office," he said, "and you should sit down." When I arrived, he laid out the photographs. May 18th, 2:30 p.m. A local hotel parking lot. Elena's car parked right next to Julian's. The next photo showed them between the cars, his hand on her back. The third was the kiss, intimate, familiar, practiced. They had arrived separately, 5 minutes apart. Hunter showed me photos of them in the hotel elevator, Julian's hand in her hair, her body pressed against his despite her pregnancy. This was just 3 days ago. While I was at a construction site working, they were using my company's money to rent a room. "That's embezzlement," Hunter noted. "A felony." I felt sick. I barely made it to the trash can before my body rejected my breakfast and the vitamins Elena had given me that morning. Hunter handed me water and told me there was more. He had started the background check on Elena. Elena Bennett didn't exist before 2019, he said. No credit, no history, no past. She appeared out of thin air a year before she met you. Unless she's using a stolen identity, your wife isn't who she says she is. I was shattered. I had married a ghost. But before I could handle her, I had to tell my daughter that her husband was a traitor. I met Maya at the park the next afternoon. I pulled out the DNA report, my hands shaking. "Maya, I am so sorry," I said. She read it in silence, her face turning white as she hit the line. Paternal match, Julian Donovan. 99.97%. "There must be a mistake," Maya whispered, her voice sounding small and fragile. "Julian wouldn't do this." "He couldn't. I didn't say a word. I just handed her the envelope of photos." I watched her eyes track across the images, the familiar cars, the intimate touches, the betrayal captured in high resolution. Her hands began to tremble. "When was this?" she asked. I told her it was just 3 days ago, but the hotel logs proved it had been going on for at least 7 months. With Elena, she choked out. My stepmother, Busker. The woman who, she couldn't even finish the sentence. She collapsed against me, sobbing with a grief I hadn't heard since her mother's funeral. They had just bought a house. They were planning a family. Everything she thought she knew about her life was a lie. I held her until the tears ran dry, then the softness in her eyes turned to steel. "What do we do?" she asked. Not, "How do I survive this?" but, "How do we fight?" My brilliant daughter was back. I told her the plan. We gather everything. Hunter was still digging into Elena's ghost of a past and Julian's embezzlement. We needed to keep them in the dark until the trap was ready. Maya wiped her eyes and promised she could play the part. That night at dinner, I watched my daughter perform a masterclass in deception. She smiled at Julian, asked about his day, and touched his hand with a warmth that made my skin crawl. Julian, completely oblivious, smiled back. I had never been prouder of her. The next morning, Hunter called with a breakthrough. "Elena Bennett is a ghost," he said. When I reached his office, he showed me a death certificate from Texas. The real Elena Bennett had died in a car accident in 2014. The woman in my house had stolen the identity of a dead girl 12 years ago. She had been using her name and social security number to build a fake life, targeting me just as she had likely targeted others. Hunter pulled up a marriage license from 2011. Before she was Elena, she was Linda Bowman. She had married a wealthy real estate developer in Austin named Richard. He was 58, wealthy, and had recently lost his wife to cancer. Sound familiar? Within 18 months of their marriage, Richard began suffering from headaches, nausea, and fatigue. His doctors blamed stress. He died of a sudden heart attack, and Linda had him cremated within 48 hours, walking away with a $5 million settlement. Hunter put Richard's sister, Amanda, on speakerphone. Her voice was raspy with years of unheard anger. "Mr. Bennett," she warned, "my brother took vitamins every single morning because his wife insisted. After he died, I had the bottle tested, but she had already swapped them for real ones. Don't take anything she gives you. Not a sip of water, not a pill. And for God's sake, don't let her cremate you." The office went silent as the gravity of the situation hit me. I wasn't just being cheated on, I was being murdered. I had been sick for 3 months, exactly since I updated my will and added a $5 million life insurance policy for the baby. Hunter sent me to a private lab for a confidential toxicology screen. 2 days later, the results came back. Dr. Mitchell, the lab director, didn't sugarcoat it. "You have colchicine in your system," he said, showing me a digital chart. "It's a substance derived from the autumn crocus. In small doses, it treats gout. In the amounts we found in your blood, it causes a slow, systemic organ failure that mimics natural illness. Most doctors miss it because it looks like heart or kidney disease." I stared at the screen, my mind flashing back to every vitamin Elena had handed me with a loving smile and a kiss on the forehead. She wasn't just waiting for me to die, she was actively pulling the trigger, one capsule at a time. And Julian, the man I treated like a son, was standing right beside her, waiting to inherit the wreckage. I looked at Hunter, the nausea rising again, but this time it wasn't the poison. It was the pure, cold realization of what I had to do next. "Based on your blood levels, I'd estimate she's been giving you 2 to 3 milligrams a day for nearly 4 months, Dr. Mitchell said, his face grave. "That is 5 times the safe dose. Another month, and your organs would have simply shut down. You'd be a memory, just like Richard Piton." The doctor explained that I'd been lucky. Whoever was doing this had miscalculated the timeline, giving me just enough strength to uncover the truth. Hunter wanted to call the police immediately, but I stopped him. I looked at the doctor and asked how long I could safely wait for treatment. He told me I had 10 days before the damage became permanent. 10 days, I said, looking at Hunter. The city's Heritage Gala is in 10 days. Every influential person in this town will be there. If we arrest them now, it's a quiet headline. I want them exposed in the light, in front of everyone they tried to fool. Hunter called it theater. I called it justice. Linda had tried to kill me in the shadows while smiling at me over dinner. I wanted the world to see her for exactly what she was. That night, I went home and played my part. I let her kiss my cheek and told her I was feeling much better. I saw the flash of concern in her eyes. She realized her clock was ticking. The next day, while she was at her yoga class and Julian was working, Hunter and I entered my own home with latex gloves and a mission. We went straight to the master suite. Hunter picked the lock on the private cabinet under the sink and found an amber bottle labeled vitamin B complex. He broke open a capsule and applied a reagent strip. It turned dark blue instantly. Colchicine. He photographed the evidence and put it back exactly as he found it. Then we searched her closet. Tucked beneath her designer sweaters, I found a manila folder. My heart stopped. It contained life insurance documents where my signature had been forged. The payout had been increased from $2 million to $5 million, with Elena Bennett as the sole beneficiary. Beside it were Cayman Island bank statements showing over $100,000 in siphoned funds. But the most damning piece was a handwritten note in Elena's own script, Julian, June. Timeline critical. After baby arrives, policy pays 60 days post-event. Cayman transfer untraceable. She was planning to finish me off as soon as the child was born, collect the millions, and disappear with Julian. We have enough for attempted murder, conspiracy, and fraud, Hunter whispered. Let's end this. No, I replied, putting the sweaters back. 7 days. We stick to the plan. For the next week, I palmed every vitamin she gave me and flushed it down the toilet. Every night, I felt my strength returning, though I pretended to stay weak. We finalized the plan with Maya and my attorney, Robert. We would use the gala's presentation screens to broadcast the affair photos, the forged documents, and the medical evidence. We coordinated with the local police. Detective Walsh and his team would be waiting at the exits with warrants ready. But fate had one last curveball. 24 hours before the gala, Elena went into early labor. The call came at 2 a.m. I drove her to the hospital in a silence so thick it was suffocating. She gripped my hand through her contractions, telling me how glad she was that I was strong for her. I sat in that delivery room for 6 hours, playing the doting husband while my skin crawled. At 8:47 a.m., a baby boy was born. The nurse wrapped him in a blue blanket and handed him to Elena. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "Look at him, Lucas, he has your nose." I looked at the child. I saw Julian in the shape of his eyes and the set of his mouth. But I also saw an innocent life born into a den of vipers. "He's perfect," I said, and I meant it. The baby was blameless, but his mother was a monster, and the clock for her reckoning had finally hit 0. Elena smiled at me from the hospital bed. "What should we name him?" she asked softly. "Let's wait," I replied, keeping my voice gentle. "Let's just make sure you both are healthy first." 2 hours later, Julian arrived. He embraced me with practiced warmth, offering congratulations that felt like a slap in the face. Maya was with him, her face a mask of perfect composure. I watched Julian hold the baby, seeing genuine wonder in his eyes. It was a twisted moment of justice, the biological father holding his son, unable to ever truly claim him.
"You guys are so lucky," Julian whispered, his voice cracking.
"He's going to have a good life," I said quietly, looking at the child. "No matter what happens." I left the hospital at noon. The Heritage Gala was 7 hours away. Elena was stuck in her recovery room, but Julian would be attending alone to represent the family. It was perfect. I called Hunter from the car and told him the plan had shifted. We would expose Julian tonight in front of everyone, and the police would handle Elena at the hospital tomorrow. 2 separate takedowns, one public, one private. Both final, the gala was everything Elena had dreamed of. I arrived at the historic ballroom at 7:30. The room was a sea of crystal, silk, and the city's most powerful people. I moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations on the new baby and playing the proud father. Julian and Maya arrived shortly after. Julian looked like the perfect son-in-law, though I could see a slight tension in his posture. He asked about Elena, and I lied easily, telling him the hospital was keeping her phone so she could rest. At 9 p.m., the society president invited me to the podium. 200 people turned toward me, smiling. They expected a speech about preservation and philanthropy. They had no idea they were about to witness a demolition. I gripped the podium and looked out at the room. "Thank you for being here," I began. "I want to talk about trust and what happens when it is shattered." I adjusted the microphone. 5 years ago, I remarried. Yesterday, my wife gave birth to a son, or so I believed. I nodded to Hunter in the AV booth. "But 3 weeks ago, I discovered a truth I cannot ignore. Hunter, the first image, please." The giant screens flickered to life. The paternity results appeared in high definition. Biological father, Julian Donovan. 99.9% probability. The room went dead silent, followed by a wave of gasps. Julian shot to his feet, shouting that this was insane. "Sit down, Julian," I said coldly. "I'm not finished." The slides advanced. Surveillance photos of Julian and Elena at the hotel. Timestamps. Intimate moments. The whispers in the room exploded into a roar. "But that's only the beginning," I continued. Next slide. We showed the bank statements. Julian had embezzled over $100,000 from my firm to fund the affair. Bang, then came the bombshell. A death certificate appeared on the screen. "My wife stole the identity of a woman who died 11 years ago," I announced. "Her real history is a trail of bodies." Next slide, Richard Peaton. I described Richard's death, the same symptoms I had been experiencing. Then, the toxicology report hit the screen. Colchicine detected. Toxic range. "For months, my wife has been poisoning me with what she called vitamins," I told the stunned crowd. "She planned to end my life, collect a $5 million insurance policy she forged my name on, and disappear with Julian. The warrants are already signed. Detective Walsh, they're all yours." Buy up under die up. The doors burst open. Officers swarmed the room. Julian tried to run, but they tackled him in front of the city's elite. "Julian Donovan, you are under arrest for embezzlement, conspiracy, and fraud." Simultaneously, across town at the hospital, the door to room 312 opened. Elena looked up from her phone, expecting a nurse. Instead, she saw Detective Walsh and 2 uniformed officers. Her smile vanished. "Elena Bennett, or whoever you are, you're under arrest for attempted murder, identity theft, and forgery," Walsh stated. Her face went white, then dissolved into a cold, calculated fury. "I want a lawyer," she spat as the handcuffs clicked shut. She glanced at the baby, her golden ticket now out of reach, as they led her out of the ward. Back at the gala, Maya stood up. Someone handed her a microphone. She looked directly at her husband as he was being led away in chains. "Julian," she said, her voice steady and devastating. "I loved you. I wanted a family with you. You destroyed everything. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow, and I thank God we never had children of our own." The room erupted into applause. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Walsh. "Suspect in custody. Baby safe." It's over. The story hit the news by midnight. The man who tried to kill me in the dark was gone, and the woman who wore a dead girl's face was finally behind bars. The morning after the gala, I woke up to a world transformed. My phone was a graveyard of over 200 messages, and news vans lined the street like sharks circling for a story. The headline was everywhere: Charleston mogul exposes wife's poisonous conspiracy at public gala. My attorney, Robert, arrived early with a simple command: silence. Let me handle the press. You handle your recovery and your daughter. Banging up to its back. Within 48 hours, the legal wheels were turning. My wife appeared on a video screen from the detention center. In an orange jumpsuit, without the expensive makeup and designer clothes, she looked like a stranger, cold, hollow, and calculating. The judge denied bail immediately, citing her as an extreme flight risk who lived behind a stolen identity. Julian's fall was just as swift. His parents sat in the back of the courtroom, shattered by the shame their son had brought upon them. They paid his bail but issued a public statement disowning him, pledging full cooperation with the law. Maya filed for an expedited divorce 3 days later. Julian didn't fight it. He signed the papers in silence, finally realizing he had lost everything for a woman who was already planning to discard him. The question of the baby remained the most painful part. Since Elena's rights were being terminated and Julian was a convicted felon, the child fell into state custody. I looked at that innocent boy, 7 pounds of blameless life, and knew he deserved better than the legacy of his parents. Maya and I promised to ensure he found a home where he was loved for himself, not used as a pawn in a game of greed. 3 months later, the truth finally had a name: Michelle Torres. Born in Louisiana, she was a professional ghost with a history of fraud in 3 different states. She had left a trail of ruined lives, but her luck had finally run out. The evidence was an avalanche: DNA, surveillance, the forged insurance papers, and the final haunting proof from Texas. Richard Piton's remains contained the same poison that had nearly taken my life. The jury took only 4 hours to reach a verdict. Michelle was sentenced to life without parole in South Carolina, with another life sentence waiting for her in Texas. She didn't cry, she didn't flinch. She just stared ahead with eyes of ice. Julian took a plea deal for 12 years, finally offering a hollow apology to Maya as he was led away. She didn't acknowledge him. She just held her head high and walked out of the courtroom, free. 6 months later, my life began to resemble something beautiful again. My health returned, and Bennett Properties emerged stronger than ever. I established the Sarah Bennett Fund to train doctors to recognize the subtle signs of long-term poisoning and domestic abuse. Helping others became our way of healing. In a surprising twist of grace, the baby was adopted by Richard Piton's sister, Amanda. She told me it was what her brother would have wanted, to give the child a fresh start with a family that actually cared. It was an imperfect justice, but it was real. I visited Sarah's grave on a cool November afternoon. I sat beneath the magnolia tree and told her we were okay. I told her I was proud of our daughter and that I was finally ready to live again. I even mentioned that I was going to have coffee with a kind woman I'd met recently. Maya and I have a new tradition now: Sunday brunch in her quiet townhouse. We talk about her patience, my projects, and the simple good things in life. The scars are still there, but they are reminders that we survived. I'm sharing this story because I don't want you to ignore the red flags I did. Don't let loneliness blind you to the truth. Trust your instincts. They are your greatest protection.
I should have died, but a series of coincidences saved my life.
I call that grace. Stay vigilant, Verify the people you let into your world and hold on to the ones who truly love you. I am a survivor, and today, for the first time in a long time, I am truly wealthy in all the ways that matter. Would you like me to help you create a community?